Are you crying? Did someone hurt your heart? Annie's small voice quivered with concern as she stepped closer to the woman on the bench, her tiny hands clutching the edges of her lavender princess dress. The 6-year-old's dark brown eyes were wide with empathy, and her sneakers tapped softly against the pavement, as if to announce her gentle arrival. The woman's shoulders shook violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. She froze, startled by the unexpected intrusion of this little stranger. I'm fine," the woman whispered, trying to pull herself together. But Annie didn't move away. "I'm Annie," the girl said, her voice steady now, carrying a quiet courage beyond her years. "I have the same color skin as you. Can I call you Mommy?" The words hung in the air like a fragile thread, impossible to ignore. The woman's hand trembled as she lifted it to her mouth, her heart pounding. 6 years ago, she had been forced to surrender her own child to the foster system, and the memory had never dulled. Now, the word Mommy pierced her soul, a reminder of what she had lost and the hope she had almost given up on. Annie tilted her head, her eyes searching the woman's face. "I don't have a mommy. My daddy says he's my family, but I think you could be my mommy too. Can you?" The woman's lips quivered. I don't know what to say," she murmured, tears spilling freely now. She looked down at the tiny, earnest face in front of her, and something deep within stirred a recognition, a longing, a spark of hope she had never allowed herself to feel again. Annie reached out, placing her small hand over the woman's. "I feel it too. When I saw you sitting here, crying, I thought maybe, just maybe, you could be my mommy. I think we belong together." The woman gasped, her breath catching. You want me to be your mommy?" "Yes," Annie said, nodding vigorously. "I've never felt this before, but it feels right. You have the same skin as me. I think I found my mommy in the park." The woman's hand flew to her face as sobs racked her body. Oh, my baby," she whispered, voice breaking. I never thought I would hear those words again. After all these years, Annie squeezed her hand gently. "You don't have to say anything yet. Just be here with me. We can start being mommy and daughter right now." Done. Jonathan Price, Annie's adoptive father, arrived at the scene, carrying the lemonade he had purchased moments before. His eyes widened as he recognized the woman before him, the same face he had seen years ago. The mother whose parental rights had been suspended before he adopted Annie. He froze, heart pounding. "Annie," he said cautiously, crouching down beside them. Annie's gaze flicked between him and the woman, her small smile unwavering. "Daddy, look, I found my mommy." The woman finally looked at Jonathan, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her voice was barely audible. You gave her to me, to you, years ago. I never thought I'd see her again like this." Jonathan nodded slowly, the weight of the past crashing into the present. "It seems," he said gently, "that some things are meant to find their way back, no matter how long it takes." Annie hugged the woman tightly. "See? It worked. We're together now." Hedda was the Russian. The woman's arms wrapped around Annie, holding her close, her heart full in a way it had not been for 6 long years. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "We are together. I am your mommy." Annie's face lit up, pure joy radiating from her. "Really? Really? Really? Really?" the woman said, smiling through tears. "I am your mommy, and I'm never letting go again." Jonathan placed a hand on Annie's other shoulder, his eyes glistening. "Welcome to our little miracle," he said softly. "It looks like today isn't just a birthday, it's a beginning." Annie jumped up and down excitedly. "Can we go back to the party now, Mommy? Please?" The woman nodded, taking Annie's tiny hand in hers. "Yes, sweetheart. Let's go back. But we'll take it slow. Today is our day." Together, the 3 of them walked back toward the festival, Annie skipping between them, laughter and tears mingling as they went. The late afternoon sun bathed the park in warm golden light, the sounds of celebration drifting around them. But for Annie and her new mommy, the world had narrowed to this small, perfect circle of hope, belonging, and love rediscovered. As they approached the festival, Annie turned to the woman, eyes sparkling. "You know, Mommy, this is the best birthday ever. I didn't just find balloons and cake. I found you." The woman laughed softly through her tears. "And I found you, Annie, my little miracle." Jonathan followed behind, smiling quietly, knowing that today marked the start of a bond that no years apart could ever break, a bond sealed by innocence, courage, and the unyielding heart of a 6-year-old who knew how to find her mommy in a park on a sunny afternoon. The festival in the park seemed to blur into a swirl of colors and laughter as Annie skipped ahead, her new mommy's hand firmly in hers. The woman, whose name Jonathan had finally reminded Annie to call her as Monique, felt the strange, intoxicating mix of fear and exhilaration. 6 years of absence, loss, and quiet despair had all led to this one miraculous moment. Her heart was both full and fragile, unsure if she could truly trust the universe to let this happiness remain. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to catch more heartfelt moments like this. Jonathan followed closely behind, holding 2 paper bags of hot dogs and soft pretzels he had picked up at a nearby vendor. "Annie, you're going to need to eat something before the birthday cake," he said gently, smiling at how quickly the girl had moved from shock to joy. Annie glanced up at him, her small face glowing with excitement. "Daddy, Mommy, can we go watch the parade first?" she asked, tugging Monique toward the winding path lined with colorful streamers and carnival booths. Monique smiled, her eyes shimmering with tears she was determined to control. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's make this a birthday you'll never forget." She could hardly believe the warmth of her own voice, steady and nurturing, resonating with a role she had only dreamed of reclaiming for so long. Her gaze fell briefly on Jonathan, whose expression was unreadable yet protective, thoughtful. She sensed the weight of history between them, his role as Annie's adoptive father, her past as a mother stripped of her rights, and yet, here they were, walking forward together, awkwardly but intentionally toward a shared joy. The parade was small, local, a celebration of neighborhood kids and families. Children dressed as superheroes and princesses marched along the paths, and confetti fell like a soft rain. Annie squealed with delight at a group of dancers twirling ribbons in brilliant reds and golds. Monique knelt down to her level, holding her hand tightly. "Look at the colors, Annie. Aren't they beautiful?" she asked. Annie's eyes sparkled as she pointed toward a girl in a sparkling purple tutu. "I want to twirl like her," she exclaimed. Monique chuckled, imagining the child she had longed to hold, to teach, to love, finally here before her. Jonathan approached, carrying the bags of food, offering them with a calm, practical smile. "I got you a hot dog and a pretzel, Annie. You have to eat something before the cake, remember?" Annie accepted them gratefully, devouring the soft pretzel in 2 eager bites. Monique watched with a tender amusement, seeing the life and energy she had missed for 6 long years. Her fingers brushed Annie's hair, brushing away a stray curl that had fallen across her forehead. "You've grown so much, my little one," she whispered softly, almost to herself. Annie looked up at her, eyebrows furrowed in earnest curiosity. "You mean, before you left me? But you weren't here," she said, her voice full of innocent confusion. Monique's throat tightened. "I know, Annie, but I've thought of you every day," she said. "Every single day. And now, here we are." The words trembled, vulnerable, and full of raw truth. Annie nodded solemnly, accepting this strange new reality with the simplicity and clarity only a child could possess. As the parade ended, Annie's gaze drifted toward the carousel, spinning in cheerful circles, painted horses and painted faces laughing. "Can we go ride, Mommy?" she asked, tugging at Monique's hand again. Monique smiled, and Jonathan watched as the two moved together, a tentative yet undeniable bond forming. "Of course," Monique said. "We'll ride every horse if you want." The joy in Annie's laughter as she mounted the first horse struck Monique with a fierce, protective love. This was her daughter, not given by law or papers, but claimed by heart and instinct. After a few rides, the trio found a quiet spot on the grassy hill near the center of the park, where the festival's sounds faded just enough to allow conversation. Annie, cheeks flushed from excitement, leaned against Monique. "Mommy, why did you cry before?" she asked softly. Monique's eyes welled up again, but she forced herself to smile, brushing a hand over Annie's curls. "Sometimes, my love, grown-ups cry when they remember what they've lost, or when they finally find something they thought was gone forever. That's all," she explained gently. Annie nodded thoughtfully, absorbing the idea like it was a simple rule of life. Jonathan, observing from a few feet away, felt a mixture of relief and astonishment. He had known the adoption had brought Annie happiness, but seeing the child and her birth mother reconnect in this surreal, tender moment shook him to his core. The woman, Monique, who had once been an abstract figure of tragedy and loss in his office, now sat beside his daughter, sharing in the laughter and wonder of the afternoon. The layers of past decisions, of justice and timing, seemed to settle, if only briefly, into a quiet balance. Annie turned to Monique suddenly, eyes wide with a child's earnest urgency. "Mommy, will you stay with me? Forever?" Monique felt a shiver run through her. "Forever and a day," she said, pressing her forehead gently against Annie's. Jonathan stepped closer, resting a protective hand on Monique's shoulder. "We'll make sure of that," he said softly. The words carried weight, acknowledging the complexity of their intertwined lives, yet offering a reassurance as solid as the earth beneath them. Soon, the festival's food stands beckoned again, and Jonathan handed Annie a small cone of ice cream, vanilla sprinkled with rainbow sugar. She licked it eagerly, crumbs dotting her small chin, and Monique laughed, ruffling her hair. "You always did have a sweet tooth," she said, a bittersweet edge to her amusement. Annie giggled, and for a moment, Monique allowed herself to imagine what it had been like to care for her from the beginning, to witness first steps, first words, first tastes of chocolate ice cream. The loss of those years tugged sharply at her heart, but the present offered a balm she could finally touch. As the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows across the park, the three of them walked hand in hand toward the picnic area, where a small birthday cake awaited Annie. Jonathan led the way, his mind already calculating the details of ensuring this day became a memory they could all hold on to. A new chapter in Annie's story. Monique followed, holding Annie's hand as the child skipped alongside her, each step a small act of reclamation, of love recovered, and hope restored. Annie's laughter echoed across the lawn, and Monique's eyes shimmered with tears, her heart swelling with a joy she had not known possible for years. She whispered softly, more to herself than anyone else, "I found you, and you found me. Somehow, we're together again." Jonathan watched them, silently aware that this park, this festival, this fleeting moment in time, had rewritten the past 6 years with a single, miraculous afternoon. The sun hung low over the park, casting golden streaks through the autumn leaves as Annie tugged Monique toward the brightly decorated picnic table. Balloons of every color floated above, tied to benches, and streamers fluttered in the gentle breeze. The smell of hot dogs, roasted nuts, and popcorn mingled with the crisp air, creating a sense of celebration that seemed almost unreal to Monique. She had spent years imagining what it would be like to hold her child again. And now, here she was, hand in hand with Annie, who chattered incessantly about the parade, the carousel, and the ice cream. Jonathan followed at a measured pace, carrying a small cooler filled with sandwiches, juice boxes, and other birthday necessities. He glanced at Monique, whose expression was a mixture of wonder and apprehension. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Monique nodded, brushing a stray curl from Annie's forehead. It's a lot to take in. 6 years gone, and now she's here, smiling at me." Jonathan's eyes softened. "I know, but it's real, and it's happening. You've got today, and tomorrow, and the day after. We'll figure it out." Annie, oblivious to the adult tension, bounced on her heels. "Mommy, look at my cake." The table was adorned with a small chocolate cake, topped with 6 glittering candles. Around it were paper plates and napkins, each printed with tiny stars and cartoon animals. "Can we eat it now?" she demanded, her eyes wide with anticipation. Monique's heart clenched as she knelt to Annie's level. "Soon, sweetheart. But first, let's say a little birthday wish, okay?" Annie nodded, her curls bouncing, and clasped her small hands together. "Close your eyes, Annie," Monique instructed softly. Jonathan moved to her side, waiting as Annie obeyed. "Make a wish," Monique whispered. Annie's lips pressed together in concentration, and after a few moments, she blew out the candles with a triumphant giggle. Monique reached forward, hugging her tight. "Happy birthday, my little miracle," she murmured. The words felt heavy with meaning, the kind that carried years of longing and sorrow, now mingled with hope. Once the cake was sliced and plates passed around, Annie eagerly took her first bite, her eyes closing in bliss. Monique watched, her chest tightening with emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel for years. This was real, her child, her little girl, sitting across from her, tasting chocolate cake for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. She gently brushed a smudge of frosting from Annie's cheek. "You've got a little something here," she said with a soft smile. Annie grinned. "I know, Mommy. I love it." Monique's eyes shimmered with tears. After the cake, Jonathan led the way to a quieter corner of the park, where the autumn leaves carpeted the ground in oranges, yellows, and reds. "Annie, do you want to play a little game before it gets dark?" he asked. Annie clapped her hands. "Yes, let's play hide and seek." Monique followed, laughter escaping her lips for the first time that day, a sound that felt foreign yet comforting. Annie counted loudly against the tree, her little voice echoing across the open space. Monique and Jonathan exchanged a glance. They were learning a new rhythm, 3 lives intertwining. Annie ran off, hiding behind a cluster of bushes, peeking out cautiously. Monique crouched low, pretending not to see her. "Where is she?" she whispered to Jonathan. He smiled, shaking his head. "She's smart. She knows we're pretending." The moment was simple, almost mundane, yet for Monique it was miraculous. She had imagined this countless times in quiet, sorrowful hours. A day when she could laugh with her daughter, touch her hair, hear her small voice full of joy. As the shadows lengthened, Annie returned to their side, breathless and flushed from excitement. "I found you, Mommy. I found you both." She collapsed into Monique's arms, who held her close, feeling the warmth and heartbeat of the child she had longed for. "Yes, my love, you found me," she said softly, kissing the top of Annie's curls. Jonathan approached, crouching down to wrap his arms around both. "Looks like our little miracle is having a perfect birthday," he said. The conversation shifted naturally as they walked along the park's winding paths. Annie chattered about everything, the parade, the ice cream, the games. Monique listened intently, her responses gentle and nurturing. Jonathan watched the scene unfold, marveling at how quickly Monique had adapted, how naturally she moved into the role of a mother. It was as if the universe had conspired to place them here, in this moment, at exactly the right time. They paused near a small fountain, water glistening in the late afternoon sun. Annie leaned against Monique, her small hand still clasped tightly. "Mommy, can we come here every year for my birthday?" she asked earnestly. Monique's eyes glistened. "Absolutely, Annie. Every year, this will be our special place." Jonathan smiled, his gaze soft. "And I'll make sure the fountain's always sparkling just for you." Annie giggled, delighting in the idea, her small laugh ringing through the park. As twilight approached, Jonathan guided them back toward the main festival area, where the lights of booths and rides began to glow warmly. Monique held Annie's hand, savoring the simple act, the weight of years erased by the small, bright presence of her daughter. Jonathan looked at them, quietly proud, silently aware of the gravity of the past 6 years and the miracle of this moment. A mother and child reunited, laughter bridging the chasm of time and loss. "Look, Mommy," Annie exclaimed, pointing toward a small carousel bathed in glowing lights. "One more ride before we go home?" Monique nodded, smiling through tears. Of course, sweetheart. One more ride. Jonathan followed, ready to capture the moment, knowing this day would be etched in memory as the start of something extraordinary. Monique held Annie's hand, feeling the reality of her new life settling around her. Fragile yet indestructible, a bond reclaimed and celebrated in the golden light of an autumn evening. As they rode the carousel, Monique caught Jonathan's eye, and he gave her a small, reassuring nod. In that shared glance was acknowledgement. The past was a shadow, but today marked a beginning. Annie laughed, spinning between them, a bridge of joy and innocence linking the present to what had been lost. Monique whispered softly, "We're together now. Nothing can take that away." Annie's tiny hand squeezed hers in reply, and for the first time in 6 years, Monique believed it. The evening air had grown cooler, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and the distant sound of laughter from families leaving the park. Annie's small hand remained firmly clasped in Monique's as they walked toward the parked car. Jonathan following close behind with the birthday gifts and a small tote of leftover treats. The lights of the carnival rides flickered, reflecting off the puddles that had formed from a brief rain earlier in the day. Monique felt a strange mixture of serenity and nervous anticipation. This day was magical, yet the weight of the past 6 years still lingered in her chest. "Mommy, can we go home now? I'm tired," Annie said, her voice soft but urgent, the kind of exhaustion that follows a day filled with excitement. Monique knelt to her level, brushing a curl from Annie's forehead. "Of course, sweetheart. You've had a long day. Tomorrow we'll do more. Okay?" Annie nodded, leaning against her gently. Jonathan opened the car door, the warmth of the vehicle inviting them inside. Monique lifted Annie into the back seat, smoothing her hair while she settled into the seat beside her. Jonathan buckled Annie in and climbed into the driver's seat, glancing at Monique. "She's really happy, isn't she?" he asked quietly. Monique nodded, unable to speak immediately. I didn't realize how much I missed this holding her, seeing her smile, hearing her laugh." Her voice trembled slightly, a raw edge of emotion that Jonathan had grown used to in recent hours. He reached over, resting his hand gently over hers. "You've been given a second chance, Monique. Don't forget that. Today is just the beginning." The drive home was calm, the quiet hum of the engine and the occasional murmur from Annie filling the space with gentle normalcy. Monique kept her gaze fixed on her daughter, marveling at how small yet vibrant she was. 6 years had passed since she had last held her child, yet Annie's eyes, wide with curiosity and trust, mirrored a familiarity Monique had longed for every day. She swallowed hard, fighting back tears. This was real. This wasn't a dream. When they reached the driveway of Jonathan's estate, Monique paused for a moment, taking in the sprawling property. The house was a blend of classic American elegance and modern comfort, with ivy climbing the facade and warm lights glowing from the windows. A small guest house sat at the edge of the garden, prepared and waiting for Annie's needs. Though today it seemed unnecessary, Annie was more interested in running into the arms of her newfound family. Jonathan led them inside, placing Annie gently on the polished hardwood floor of the foyer. "Dinner's almost ready," he said with a smile. "You can wash up while I get things started." Annie dashed toward the guest bathroom, humming a tune she had picked up from the day's festivities. Monique followed more slowly, her steps measured as she navigated through the familiar yet surreal surroundings. In the bathroom mirror, she caught her reflection, a woman with a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and awe etched across her face. This life, this reunion, felt almost impossible. And yet here it was. She guided Annie through washing her hands and face, and then helped her change into a soft pair of pajamas adorned with tiny stars. Downstairs, the aroma of roasted chicken, baked potatoes, and green beans filled the air. Monique's stomach twisted with nerves and anticipation. She was about to share her first formal meal with Annie in this home, her new family unit taking shape. Jonathan smiled at her from the kitchen island, a reassuring presence. "Don't worry, Monique. Everything's perfect. Just Be yourself. She nodded, drawing in a deep breath. Yes, she could do this. She could finally step into the role she had yearned for. To nurture, to protect, to love. Dinner was a symphony of chatter and laughter. Annie chattered endlessly about the carousel, the ice cream, the balloons, and the games. Monique listened, responding in soft, guiding tones, occasionally laughing at her daughter's vivid storytelling. Jonathan offered occasional interjections, reinforcing routines, and sharing gentle encouragements. It was domesticity in its purest form, an ordinary moment made extraordinary by the gravity of what it represented. Healing, reconnection, and a fragile, delicate start to a life renewed. At one point, Annie tugged Monique's hand. "Mommy, will you read me a story before bed?" Monique's heart swelled. "Of course, sweetie. Let's find one upstairs in your room." They ascended to the guest room that had been prepared for her. A cozy space with pastel walls, a canopy over the bed, and shelves filled with children's books. Annie crawled into bed, her small hands gripping Monique's fingers. Monique picked up a picture book about a little girl who found a secret garden. Her voice soft and melodic as she read, alternating voices for each character. Annie giggled and gasped at the appropriate moments, entirely absorbed. As the story came to an end, Annie's eyelids drooped. "I love you, Mommy," she whispered. Monique pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I love you too, my Annie. Always." She watched as Annie's breathing slowed, the soft rise and fall of her chest signaling deep, peaceful sleep. Monique's eyes filled with tears she no longer fought back. This quiet, fragile moment was proof that they had found their way back to each other. Jonathan knocked gently on the doorframe. "She's asleep. Do you want to talk for a minute?" Monique nodded, stepping out to join him in the guest house living area. The house was quiet now, the echoes of celebration replaced by the soft hum of evening. Jonathan gestured for her to sit. "Monique, I can't imagine what this day has been like for you, or how overwhelming it must feel. But I want you to know, I'm here. We're a family now. You don't have to face any of this alone." She looked into his eyes, seeing the sincerity there, and felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I've been so afraid. Afraid of messing this up. Afraid that I wasn't worthy. But today, holding Annie, seeing her happy, I feel like maybe there's hope. Maybe I can do this." Jonathan smiled gently. "You're already doing it. You've got the courage, the love, and the patience. That's all that matters." With the sign one, the three of them, Monique, Annie, and Jonathan, settled into a calm evening. A trio bound by newfound trust, love, and the shared miracle of reunification. Outside, the night deepened, stars beginning to shimmer above, silent witnesses to a family reshaped, a life reclaimed, and the promise of tomorrow glowing as brightly as the lights of the park they had just left behind. Morning sunlight filtered through the guest house windows, casting golden streaks across the hardwood floors. Annie was already awake, her small feet padding softly on the rug as she clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Mommy, wake up! Today is my birthday!" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Monique stirred from the couch where she had fallen asleep after the previous night's quiet reflection. She blinked against the light and smiled, her heart swelling. "Good morning, my little star. Happy birthday, Annie," she whispered, ruffling her daughter's curls. Annie leaped into her arms, giggling. "Are we going to the park for my party? Are we going to see the balloons and the magic show?" Monique laughed softly, adjusting the pajama sleeves on Annie's arms. "Yes, sweetheart. Jonathan's getting everything ready. Let's get dressed, and then we'll go." There was an easy rhythm to the morning, a flow that felt both ordinary and extraordinary. For Monique, it was a rare gift. A day without anxiety or uncertainty. A day devoted entirely to celebrating Annie. Downstairs, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and pancakes filled the air. Jonathan was at the kitchen counter, meticulously arranging party favors and placing gift bags along the picnic tables set in the park. He looked up as Monique entered, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Good morning." "She seems thrilled." he said quietly, nodding toward Annie, who was now darting around the living area, chattering nonstop. Monique approached, glancing at him. "She deserves every bit of happiness today," she said softly, her eyes lingering on the tiny figure who had changed everything in her life. The drive to the park was lively. Annie pointed out every lamppost, flower bed, and passing dog, her excitement contagious. Monique kept her gaze mostly on her daughter, noticing the way her small hands gripped the seat, how her laughter rang out with pure joy. "Mommy, look! The balloons are moving. The clowns are coming," Annie squealed, bouncing slightly in her seat. Monique laughed, squeezing her hand. "Yes, I see them, sweetie. They're waiting just for you." The park was vibrant, full of families and children celebrating birthdays, picnicking on blankets, and playing games. A colorful banner reading, "Happy 6th birthday, Annie," fluttered in the light breeze. Monique's heart ached with a mix of gratitude and nostalgia. She had never imagined such a day would exist for her daughter. Jonathan led the way, coordinating the setup while ensuring Annie was at the center of every detail. "Annie, do you want to meet the magician first, or start with the pony rides?" he asked, crouching to her level. Annie's eyes sparkled. "The magician, then the pony rides." Monique watched as Annie ran off, her laughter echoing across the open space. Jonathan glanced at Monique, a shadow crossing his features for a brief moment. "I'll grab some food for you both. Birthday mornings are chaotic. You need to eat." Monique nodded, following him toward the food stand where breakfast sandwiches and fruit were laid out. But as she turned back, she caught sight of Annie wandering toward the edge of the parking lot, drawn to a row of benches outside the park gates. Annie's curiosity had led her to a woman seated alone, her head bowed and shoulders shaking. She was clearly crying. Something in Annie's chest tugged sharply. The sight of someone in pain stirred empathy that seemed far beyond her 6 years. Without hesitation, she ran forward, calling gently, "Are you crying? Did someone hurt your heart?" The woman looked up, startled, her eyes wide as she saw the small child approaching. Annie stopped a few feet away, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "I'm Annie," she said softly. I think you have the same color skin as me. Can I call you Mommy?" The words hung in the air, fragile and trembling. The woman froze, her breath catching in her throat. 6 years ago, her own child had been taken from her, placed in foster care, and then into adoption. She had never expected to hear the word Mommy spoken by anyone but her own child, and yet here it was, flowing effortlessly from the lips of this small, earnest girl. Monique felt a tremor run through her as she watched, the layers of the past pressing against the present. The woman's eyes welled with tears, reflecting disbelief and awe. She began, her voice breaking. "I can't believe. 6 years. My baby." Annie reached forward instinctively, laying a tiny hand on the woman's arm. "It's okay," she whispered. "I think we were meant to find each other. You can be my mommy. Please." Time seemed to slow. The bustle of the park faded into the background, leaving only the three of them, Annie, the woman, and the quiet tension that held a story of loss and reunion in its grip. The woman's lips trembled as she drew in a shaky breath. "Annie, I never thought I'd hear that again, after all this time." Her hands hovered over Annie, unsure whether to embrace or recoil from the impossibility of the moment. But Annie's unwavering gaze, her soft, imploring eyes, dissolved all hesitation. Slowly, carefully, the woman bent down and enveloped Annie in a trembling hug. "Oh, my darling, my baby," she whispered, clutching her as if afraid to let go. Annie buried her face against the woman's shoulder, her small arms wrapping around tightly. Monique, watching from a distance, felt a lump rise in her throat. This was the moment the universe had carved out of the chaos, the moment where broken hearts and lost time could begin to heal. Jonathan appeared then, scanning the crowd. He spotted the two and hurried over, recognition flashing in his eyes. "Monique, Annie, wait," he called out, and then froze as he saw the woman. His pulse quickened, a mix of shock and disbelief. The woman before him, sitting there crying, cradling Annie, was the very person he had encountered 6 years ago. The one he had seen before signing the adoption papers that had placed Annie in another family. His mind reeled. This wasn't possible. And yet the evidence stood before him, impossible to deny. Monique approached cautiously, Jonathan's presence anchoring her in the moment. The woman straightened, her hands still trembling, eyes fixed on Annie. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Annie lifted her head, smiling softly, as if understanding the magnitude of the moment in ways that Monique and Jonathan could not. You can say you're my mommy, Annie said simply, her voice full of certainty and hope. Jonathan swallowed hard, stepping closer. Monique, this is her. The woman I saw 6 years ago. She was the one in my office before I signed the adoption papers. His words faltered, the disbelief in his own voice reflecting the storm of emotion churning inside. Monique reached out, resting her hand on his arm, grounding him as they all absorbed the impossible reality, the reunion, the convergence of past choices, and the promise of healing that now unfolded before them. Annie tugged at the woman's hand, guiding her toward the park benches. Come on, Mommy. Let's sit together. We can watch the parade and eat cake. The woman's tears fell freely now, and she nodded, too overcome to speak. Jonathan exhaled slowly, his mind racing but his heart quietly accepting the miracle before him. This was the start of something new, a day that would forever mark the beginning of restored love, forgiveness, and the intricate weaving of a family reunited. The park was alive with color, laughter, and the sense of birthday treats. But for Annie, Monique, and the woman now slowly reclaiming her name, Letitia, time seemed suspended. Annie perched between the two women on the wooden bench, her small hands holding onto both of them, a bridge between past and present. Mommy Letitia, she said softly, testing the words as if tasting something magical for the first time. Letitia blinked, caught between disbelief and awe. Annie, I can't believe you. I never thought I'd hear that again. Monique gently rested her hand on Letitia's back, giving silent encouragement. It's real, Letitia. She's your daughter, and she's found you. Annie clapped her hands, her eyes sparkling. We can eat cake now and see the magic show, she exclaimed, jumping off the bench and running toward the tables laden with colorful cupcakes and balloons. Letitia remained seated for a moment, still trying to process, while Jonathan carefully followed, carrying a tray of sandwiches for Monique and Letitia. I don't know how to start, Letitia admitted, accepting a sandwich. Her hands shook slightly as she tried to compose herself. Jonathan nodded, understanding without words. Start by breathing. Take it slowly. This is a long overdue beginning. It's Stan. The magic show began shortly after, a tall performer in a sequined cape twirling wands and pulling ribbons from hats. Annie gasped in delight at every trick, her laughter ringing through the park. Letitia watched her daughter's excitement, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. She's grown so much, Letitia whispered. I can't believe she's 6 already. It feels like yesterday she was a newborn in that center. Monique reached over, squeezing her hand. Time hasn't erased what matters. She's here with you now. As the magic show concluded with a cascade of colorful confetti, Annie ran to her mother and Letitia, grabbing both their hands. Come on, Mommy Letitia, Mommy Monique. We have to pick our balloons before they float away. Letitia laughed through her tears, a warmth spreading in her chest she hadn't felt in years. All right, sweetheart. Let's get our balloons, she said, letting Annie pull her toward the vendor stall. While Annie focused on the perfect rainbow balloon, Jonathan lingered nearby, scanning the crowd subtly. The moment was almost too perfect, a fragile balance of joy and the ghosts of past pain. He caught Monique's eye and nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the tension still lingering under the surface. Monique smiled faintly, her hand brushing over his in passing. We'll navigate it together, she said quietly. He nodded, reassured by her calm presence. The birthday cake arrived with a flourish, a miniature castle adorned with pastel icing and tiny figurines. Annie's eyes widened in awe. "It's perfect!" she exclaimed, clapping her small hands. Letitia guided Annie to blow out the 6 candles. "Make a wish, my little star," Letitia whispered. Annie closed her eyes tightly and whispered something inaudible, her tiny lips barely moving. Then, with a deep breath, she blew out the candles, confetti raining down in celebration. The crowd of family and friends cheered. But for the trio, it was an intimate, private triumph, a reclamation of lost time. Monique watched as Letitia's face softened, the weight of years spent apart lifting slowly. "I know it's overwhelming," Monique said gently, "but you're allowed to feel it, to let it in. She's here, and she chose to call you Mommy." Letitia nodded, the tears now flowing freely, washing away the bitterness and regret that had built up over half a decade. I don't deserve this," she whispered. Jonathan stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Deserve it? You've earned it in ways you may not realize. She's your daughter. Yes, but this moment, you made it possible simply by being you." The afternoon stretched on, filled with games, laughter, and shared sandwiches. Annie ran from one activity to another, occasionally returning to squeeze Letitia's hand or whisper something in Monique's ear. Letitia, initially hesitant, now moved freely, hugging, laughing, and playing alongside her daughter. The joy was infectious, drawing smiles from other families nearby who couldn't help but be swept up in the warmth radiating from the small group. By mid-afternoon, the guests had dwindled, leaving only the family and a few close friends. Annie, exhausted from her excitement, nestled between Monique and Letitia, leaning her head against Letitia's arm. "I love my birthday," she murmured sleepily. Letitia kissed the top of her head, tears streaking her cheeks. "I love you, Annie, more than I can ever say," she whispered. Jonathan, watching them, felt a deep sense of resolution. The past 6 years of difficult choices, bureaucracy, and heartbreak had led to this an improbable reunion that finally felt right. Monique stood beside Jonathan, glancing at Letitia and Annie. "It's going to take time," she said softly. "Trust will build, and the wounds of the past will heal gradually. But this day, it's a start." Jonathan nodded. "A very important start," he said quietly. Both adults watched in silence as Annie drifted off to sleep in the late afternoon sun, her small hands still clasped with Letitia's. As the park emptied and the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Letitia sat quietly, holding Annie and gazing at Jonathan and Monique. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you," she said softly, voice thick with emotion. Jonathan shook his head. "No repayment necessary. Some moments in life aren't about debts. They're about presence. You're present now. That's all that matters." Monique smiled. "And we'll all navigate this together, as a family." The cool evening air carried the faint scent of flowers from the park gardens. Letitia breathed deeply, feeling a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in years. Her gaze softened over Annie's sleeping form. "We'll be okay," she whispered. "We have each other now." Jonathan gave a slight nod, a subtle acknowledgement that the day had shifted something irreversibly good. Monique rested her hand on Letitia's back, her eyes reflecting quiet satisfaction. The park, once just a backdrop to a chaotic city, had become the canvas for a new beginning, one painted with love, reconciliation, and hope. As the shadows lengthened, the family reclaimed, reunited, and cautiously optimistic walked slowly toward the exit. Annie stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep. Letitia bent down, pressing her forehead gently to her daughter's temple. "You are my everything," she whispered, letting the words settle in the quiet space between them. Jonathan and Monique followed closely, their steps synchronized, an unspoken promise to guard, nurture, and guide this newly restored family through the uncertain journey ahead. And in that ordinary park, amidst the echoes of laughter and the fading warmth of a spring afternoon, a broken past began to be healed by the small, resilient heart of a little girl who had dared to call someone mommy. The sun had begun to dip below the skyline, casting long golden shadows across the park. But the warmth of the afternoon still lingered in the hearts of Annie, Letitia, Jonathan, and Monique. After the magical birthday celebration, they found a quiet corner near the edge of the park, where the hum of traffic felt distant and the rustle of leaves provided a natural serenity. Annie, now drowsy from excitement and sugar, nestled closer into Letitia's side. "Mommy Letitia, will we come here again?" she mumbled, her eyelids heavy. Letitia stroked Annie's hair gently, the texture so familiar yet astonishing after all these years. "Yes, darling. We'll come here as often as you like. This will be our place," she whispered softly, her voice catching on the emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Jonathan observed the small scene quietly, feeling a mix of pride and relief. The reunion had unfolded far more beautifully than he could have imagined. Monique stood beside him, her eyes following Letitia and Annie with a maternal softness. "It's remarkable how resilient children are," she said. "And how brave, too. This little one has bridged a 6-year gap in an instant." Jonathan nodded, thinking back to the day he had signed the adoption papers. He had always known that legal decisions couldn't heal emotional voids, but sometimes, as he had just witnessed, innocence could. He glanced at Letitia, whose tears glimmered in the fading sunlight. "She's called you Mommy," he said quietly, almost as a confirmation. Letitia smiled through her tears, her heart pounding. "I know. I can't believe she did. I never thought I'd hear that word directed at me again. I'm mad." Annie stirred slightly and opened one eye, looking up at Letitia with unfiltered trust. "Mommy, can we feed the ducks now?" she asked, her voice small but full of hope. Letitia laughed gently, the sound warm and natural. "Of course, baby. Let's go," she said, standing slowly and taking her daughter's hand. Jonathan followed, carrying a small bag of breadcrumbs for the feeding ritual, while Monique held the leftover cupcakes and a water bottle. Together, they walked toward the pond at the center of the park, where a family of ducks glided lazily across the water's surface. As Annie scattered the crumbs, quacking ducks swarmed around, and she giggled uncontrollably. Letitia knelt beside her, helping to sprinkle crumbs while marveling at the joy radiating from her daughter. "You've grown into such a confident little girl," Letitia murmured, brushing crumbs from Annie's tiny fingers. Annie looked up at her mother with sparkling eyes. "I had to be brave," she said, almost matter-of-factly. Letitia's chest tightened at the words. "And you are," she replied, wrapping Annie in a hug. The bond felt tangible, a bridge over the years they had lost. Jonathan, standing a step behind, watched Letitia and Annie together and was struck by the depth of connection he had orchestrated through a simple act of presence and opportunity. Monique, noticing his gaze, said softly, "Sometimes life gives us a chance to correct what was once broken, but it takes courage from the adults as much as from the children to see it through." Jonathan nodded slowly, realizing that the strength of Letitia's heart in confronting her past had created a new possibility for all of them. As the light dimmed and the ducks floated away to their nests, Annie's attention returned to the playful wind chimes hanging from a nearby tree. She ran to them, laughing, spinning in circles while Letitia and Monique followed, holding hands loosely to keep her safe. Jonathan stayed back, capturing the moment in his mind, the spontaneous joy, the reclaimed family, the innocence that had initiated a chain of healing. He remembered Letitia's stunned expression the first moment Annie had called her Mommy, the disbelief slowly melting into love. That fleeting moment had become the cornerstone of a new reality. Sitting back on the edge of the pond, Letitia allowed herself to breathe fully, the weight of regret, sorrow, and hopelessness dissipating with each ripple across the water. "I want to be everything she's ever needed," she whispered to Jonathan, her voice trembling slightly but steady. "And I want to do right by her from now on. I can't undo the past, but I can promise her a future." Jonathan placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "And you will, Letitia. You already have, by showing up. The rest is a journey." Annie, now tired from feeding ducks and exploring, climbed back onto Letitia's lap. "Can we go home soon, Mommy?" she asked softly. Letitia hugged her tightly. "Yes, baby. We'll head home soon. But today, Today was all about you, she said, kissing the top of her head. The little girl snuggled closer, her breathing steadying into the calm rhythm of a safe, secure child. Monique smiled, sensing the quiet triumph of this moment, the reclamation of love and the first tangible steps of healing a family fractured by circumstance. Jonathan and Monique walked a few steps behind, sharing a quiet glance of mutual understanding. This day will be remembered, Monique said softly, for her, for Letitia, and even for you. All of you have been part of something extraordinary. Jonathan nodded, allowing himself a small smile. It's remarkable how a child's courage can redirect the course of adult lives. Annie, she's remarkable. Monique squeezed his hand gently. Yes, and she has a mother now who sees her, loves her, and will fight for her. As the group made their way out of the park, the golden light fading into soft twilight, Annie looked up at Letitia and whispered, "I love you, Mommy." Letitia's heart swelled beyond measure. "I love you too, Annie. More than anything," she replied, holding her daughter close as they stepped toward the parking lot where Jonathan's car waited. The crisp evening air smelled faintly of flowers and freshly cut grass, a reminder that life's small joys could still exist even after years of pain. Jonathan opened the car door for Annie, who climbed in and immediately curled up, her eyes heavy but content. Letitia followed, settling beside her daughter, while Monique took the front passenger seat. Jonathan started the engine, glancing in the rearview mirror at the two of them. "She'll sleep well tonight," he said, more to himself than anyone else. Letitia reached out and held Annie's hand, squeezing gently. "She will, and so will I," she said softly. The car pulled away from the park, carrying with it a family newly whole, stitched together by love, courage, and the innocence of a little girl who dared to call a stranger Mommy, and in doing so, healed all of them. The drive back from the park was quiet at first, with only the soft hum of the engine filling the car. Annie, exhausted from the day's adventures, had fallen asleep in her mother's lap, her small hands curled loosely against Letitia's dress. Letitia glanced down, a mixture of awe and tenderness flooding her chest. "You've been so brave today, baby," she whispered, stroking Annie's hair. The child's lips parted in a faint smile even in sleep, and Letitia felt the first real surge of hope she had known in years. Monique, sitting beside Jonathan, gave a soft smile. "It's incredible how quickly she's bonded with you," she said quietly. Jonathan nodded, his eyes on the road but his mind fully on the reunion they had witnessed. "It's like fate handed her back to you," he replied, "and it was your courage that made it possible." Letitia inhaled deeply, letting the words sink in. Courage had been needed by both of them. For 6 years, she had felt powerless, haunted by loss, regret, and the memory of the day her parental rights had been taken away. And yet, in the span of one afternoon, a child's innocence had opened the door to healing. Arriving at Jonathan's estate, they stepped out into the crisp evening air. The estate was quiet, the large house a silent witness to the day's events. Annie stirred slightly, murmuring in her sleep, and Letitia carried her gently into the foyer, where the warm light of the chandelier cast soft golden glows across the polished floors. "She's so light. I can't believe how small she still is," Letitia said, setting Annie down on a plush rug. Annie blinked awake, rubbing her eyes, and looked up at her mother with immediate recognition. "Mommy, we're home?" she asked, voice still laced with fatigue. "Yes, baby, we're home," Letitia said, smiling, "and you are safe now, always." Annie's face relaxed into a smile, and for the first time in years, Letitia felt the full weight of possibility and relief. Jonathan cleared his throat, breaking the soft moment. "I need to run a few things upstairs," he said, nodding toward the study. "Monique, can you help Letitia get settled?" Monique nodded, gently guiding the two women toward a quiet room near the back of the house. "Let's make her comfortable first," she said. "She deserves it after everything." Letitia followed, carrying Annie to a small, sunlit room with soft furniture and toys carefully arranged in baskets. She sank onto a chair, Annie curling up against her. Monique lingered, Watching for a moment before quietly leaving them to themselves, Annie yawned widely and snuggled closer. "Mommy, can we have cookies?" she asked, a mischievous glint in her eye. Letitia laughed softly. "We can, baby, but only a few," she said, taking her hand. As they walked into the kitchen, Letitia marveled at the simplicity and normalcy of the moment. Flour dusted the countertop, a cookie sheet waiting patiently, and the aroma of freshly baked chocolate chips filled the room. She realized that this small, ordinary ritual carried a profound significance. A family could be rebuilt, not in grand gestures, but in daily acts of love and care. Meanwhile, Jonathan retreated to his study, still absorbing the incredible coincidence of the afternoon. He had seen Letitia's shock when Annie had called her mommy, but what truly shook him was recognizing the woman she had approached, the very same woman he had met 6 years ago, on the day he had signed the adoption papers. He could recall the nervous, tense lines on her face as she had said goodbye to her child, the helplessness in her eyes. And now, after all these years, that same woman was sitting before the child who had been lost to her. Jonathan pressed a hand to his chest, breathing deeply. Fate, it seemed, had a way of circling back, demanding acknowledgement, and offering redemption in a single, breathtaking moment. Letitia, now settled with Annie, felt the enormity of what had transpired. She had been hesitant to accept hope for so long. Each small victory had been overshadowed by memories of loss. But Annie's laughter, the soft weight of her hand in hers, and the sheer innocence that had prompted the first word, "Mommy," had bridged a chasm 6 years wide. She felt a strange, almost disorienting mix of gratitude, awe, and fear. Could she truly protect this bond? Could she navigate the complexities of being the mother she had longed to be while allowing Annie to heal from the years they had been apart? Letitia pressed her forehead gently against Annie's, letting the child feel her presence, her promise. As twilight deepened, the three of them, Jonathan, Letitia, and Annie, gathered around the small dining table for a simple dinner. Monique had prepared a roasted chicken with vegetables and a fresh salad, each element fragrant and nourishing. Annie's eyes widened at the spread, and she hesitated only a moment before reaching eagerly for the food. Letitia smiled, offering her a bite. "Taste this, baby. It's delicious," she said. Annie chewed carefully, savoring the flavor. "It's yummy. Mommy, you made it taste better," she said innocently. Letitia's heart tightened. Every word, every gesture, seemed to echo the love that had been absent for far too long. Jonathan watched from the head of the table, quietly impressed by the unfolding connection. He knew that the reunion, miraculous though it had been, was only the beginning. There would be challenges ahead. The reconciliation of past trauma, the reinforcement of trust, the slow nurturing of familial bonds that had been fractured. Yet, seeing Annie laugh, Letitia's eyes glistening with tears, and the ease with which Monique facilitated the moment, he felt an unprecedented sense of optimism. There was work to be done, certainly, but hope was palpable, almost tangible in the room. After dinner, as the evening cooled and the last traces of sunlight disappeared behind the horizon, Letitia tucked Annie into a small, cozy bed in the room near the back of the house. She smoothed Annie's hair back from her forehead, brushing away crumbs and stray strands, and whispered, "You are safe. You are loved. You are my daughter, and I will never let you go." Annie's eyes closed slowly, a serene smile spreading across her face as sleep took hold. Letitia sat beside her for a long moment, letting herself absorb the enormity of the day. 6 years of yearning, 6 years of lost opportunity, and now a miracle. Jonathan entered quietly, standing in the doorway for a moment, observing the two of them. He felt a deep, abiding respect for Letitia, the courage it took to show up, to trust, and to accept love once more. He moved forward silently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "She's lucky to have you," he said softly. Letitia glanced up at him, a mixture of gratitude and shared understanding passing between them. "No," she replied gently. "I'm the lucky one." In Nost Tess, in that quiet house, with night enveloping the estate and the soft, rhythmic breathing of a child who had finally found her mother, Letitia allowed herself to hope. The past could not be undone, but the present offered redemption, love, and the promise of a family reclaimed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, they simply existed together, whole for the first time in years. The morning sunlight spilled through the large windows of the estate, casting warm patterns across the polished wooden floors. Annie stirred awake in her small bed, stretching her tiny arms toward the ceiling. She blinked a few times, trying to adjust to the brightness, and then beamed as she saw Letitia sitting in the chair beside her. "Good morning, Mommy," Annie chirped, her voice still heavy with sleep. Letitia leaned down, brushing a loose curl from Annie's forehead. "Good morning, my sweet girl. Did you sleep well?" Annie nodded vigorously, her eyes sparkling. "I dreamed we were flying, and you were holding me the whole time." Letitia smiled, feeling a mixture of amusement and awe. "Well, then we must be very brave flyers," she replied, lifting Annie into her lap. The child giggled, the sound ringing through the room like a melody. After a light breakfast of scrambled eggs, toast, and fresh orange juice, Jonathan arrived, impeccably dressed as always, though the tension in his shoulders suggested he hadn't slept much. "Morning," he said, his voice warm. "How's my favorite little birthday girl?" Annie bounced in her chair, practically vibrating with excitement. "I'm 6 today," she exclaimed. Jonathan laughed, the sound rich and genuine. "Then today will be nothing short of spectacular." Letitia watched the exchange quietly, marveling at how effortlessly Jonathan connected with Annie. It was as if he had always been a part of her world, a grounding presence in the whirlwind of emotion that had begun the previous day. The plan for the day was a small birthday celebration in the city park with a masked carnival and various festivities set up in honor of Annie's 6th birthday. Jonathan had spared no detail, arranging for pony rides, balloon animals, and a small stage for puppet shows. As they drove to the park in Jonathan's sleek SUV, Annie pressed her face against the window, eyes wide as she took in the colorful banners and the crowd of children running excitedly from one attraction to another. "Mommy, look at the clowns," she shouted, pointing to a group of performers juggling bright balls. Letitia held her hand, smiling. "It looks magical, doesn't it?" she said softly. Annie nodded, her energy contagious. "It's the best birthday ever." Upon arriving, Jonathan helped Letitia and Annie out of the car and handed over a small bag with snacks and a bottle of water for Annie. "I'll be back in a few minutes to get you something to eat," he said, glancing at the nearby food stands. Annie waved enthusiastically, her tiny hands forming a perfect bye-bye. As Jonathan disappeared into the crowd, Annie's attention was immediately caught by the fountain at the center of the park, where a group of children were tossing pennies and making wishes. She ran toward it, skipping over the cobblestones with carefree delight. That's when she saw her. A woman, seated alone on a bench just beyond the fountain, her face buried in her hands, shoulders trembling as quiet sobs escaped her. Annie slowed her pace, her curiosity mixed with concern. She approached cautiously, her small voice breaking the lull of the park's ambient noise. "Are you crying? Did someone hurt your heart?" Annie asked. The woman lifted her head, startled, her dark eyes wide with surprise. For a moment, she simply stared at the small child who had appeared almost out of nowhere, her chest tightening at the innocence radiating from her. I don't know," the woman whispered, voice thick with emotion. "It's been a long day." Annie took another small step forward. "I have the same color skin as you," she said, her tone gentle but confident. Can I call you Mommy?" The words hung in the air, weighty and unexpected. The woman froze, a gasp escaping her lips as memories she had long buried surged to the surface. 6 years ago, she had lost her daughter to a system that had seemed cruel and indifferent. And now, here she was confronted by a child who called her Mommy without hesitation or knowledge of the pain that preceded this moment. Annie's small hand reached tentatively toward the woman's, brushing against it as if offering a lifeline. I'm Annie," she added softly. "And today is my birthday. Will you be my mommy? Just for today?" Tears streamed down the woman's face as she took in the earnest plea. She could hardly breathe, the words too simple, too profound. I don't know what to say, she managed to whisper, her voice breaking. I never thought I would hear that word again. Annie's eyes shone with unguarded hope. It's okay, Mommy. You can say yes or no, but I think we were meant to find each other. Jonathan, having returned with Annie's snack bag, noticed the unusual scene. He slowed his steps as he realized the gravity of what he was witnessing. His daughter sitting with a woman he recognized immediately. Letitia, the same woman who had once stood before him, shaking, heartbroken, on the day she had relinquished her parental rights. He felt a jolt of recognition, a mix of disbelief and awe. He had seen her sorrow firsthand years ago, and now here she was, face to face with the child she had lost. His heart pounded as he approached slowly, careful not to disrupt the delicate moment. The woman looked at Jonathan as he stepped closer, recognition dawning in her eyes. Jonathan, she murmured, voice trembling. Jonathan nodded, his gaze fixed on Letitia and Annie. It's been a long time, he said softly, unable to hide the awe in his tone. You're her mother. The words were almost sacred, acknowledging the past while validating the miracle unfolding before them. Letitia's knees nearly buckled beneath her as she reached for Annie, her heart swelling with a mix of grief and overwhelming joy. Annie leaned forward, resting her head against Letitia's chest. See, Mommy? We're together, she whispered. Letitia pressed a trembling kiss to Annie's hair. Yes, my baby. We are, she replied, her voice barely more than a whisper. Around them, the park continued its cheerful chaos, but for the three of them, the world had narrowed to a single, extraordinary truth. They were reunited. Jonathan stepped back, giving them space, tears welling in his eyes. I can't believe this, he admitted. It's like time itself. Gave us a second chance. Letitia looked up at him, a soft smile through her tears. We've been given a gift, she said, and we can't waste it. Annie, sensing the weight and meaning behind the adult's emotions, giggled softly. Then let's not waste it, Mommy. Let's play. And with that, she tugged Letitia toward the fountain, laughter ringing out, infectious and bright, a sound that seemed to erase the years of sorrow and fear that had lingered too long. Jonathan watched as mother and daughter walked hand in hand, their bond immediate and undeniable. For the first time in years, the impossible felt real, and the city park became not just a place of celebration, but the stage for a reunion that had been written long before anyone had expected. The miracle of connection, innocence, and courage had arrived at last. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, casting a gentle warmth over the park as Jonathan guided Letitia and Annie through the bustling festival. The colorful banners flapped in the breeze, and the scent of caramel popcorn and roasted nuts mingled with the crisp spring air. Annie's small hand clung tightly to Letitia's, her eyes darting from one attraction to the next. Look, Mommy, a balloon dragon, she shouted, pointing toward a massive, twisting balloon sculpture near the stage. Letitia laughed, brushing a stray curl from Annie's forehead. It's magnificent, isn't it, sweetie? Annie nodded furiously, then tugged her toward the puppet show, her energy boundless. Jonathan, walking slightly behind, took in the scene with a sense of awe. The sight of his daughter so happy, so free, brought a lump to his throat. His mind kept drifting back to the woman sitting on the bench earlier, the one who had silently cried, the one who had held Annie's heart in her hands with a single word. Mommy. Letitia had been hesitant, unsure of how to navigate the reunion, but Annie's fearless innocence had bridged the gap between years of pain and regret. Watching them now, Jonathan felt a swell of gratitude that fate had allowed them to find each other. After a while, Annie's stomach gave a loud, insistent growl. She looked up at Jonathan, her wide eyes filled with hope. Daddy, can we get a snack? Jonathan smiled, ruffling her hair. Of course, sweet girl, let's get you something delicious. He led them to a nearby food cart, ordering soft pretzels, mini corn dogs, and fresh lemonade. Letitia stayed beside Annie, keeping her attention on the treats while Jonathan paid, his mind still partly on the moment at the bench. Annie munched on a pretzel, crumbs falling onto her lap, completely engrossed in the festivities. Letitia watched her closely, a bittersweet ache in her chest. She had spent 6 long years wondering if she would ever hold her child again. And now here she was, the child's laughter filling the air like music. "Annie," she said softly, "you know Mommy loves you, right?" Annie's face lit up as she looked up. "I know, Mommy, and I love you too. You're my best mommy ever." Letitia felt tears prick her eyes, a mixture of joy and relief. The afternoon passed in a blur of excitement. Annie rode ponies, collected colorful balloons, and even had her face painted like a tiny tiger. Letitia held her hand through each activity, whispering words of encouragement and laughter. Jonathan occasionally joined in, pushing Annie on the swings and guiding her gently through the obstacle courses. Yet, even amidst the joy, a subtle tension lingered in the back of Jonathan's mind. The recognition, the unexpected reunion, the silent questions of how life could have brought them to this exact moment. All of it weighed on him. Eventually, Annie's attention shifted toward the parking area, where rows of parked cars marked the edge of the festival. She darted forward, drawn by some magnetic curiosity, and Letitia followed, calling softly, "Annie, wait, don't go too far." Jonathan, noticing her movement, quickened his pace. As they neared the edge of the parking lot, they found Annie sitting beside a small, folding bench, where a woman, an unfamiliar one to the festival goers, was still quietly weeping. Annie's eyes, full of concern, met the woman's. "Are you okay?" Annie asked again, this time with more insistence. The woman lifted her head, startled by the tiny voice, her tears glistening in the sunlight. I've had a hard day," she said, her voice catching. Annie, without hesitation, leaned closer. "I know what it's like to feel sad, but maybe we can help each other feel better." The woman's brows knitted in confusion and wonder, taken aback by the child's insight and compassion. Annie placed her small hand on the woman's arm. "I have the same color skin as you," she said, her voice unwavering. Can I call you Mommy?" The words were simple, yet they carried a depth that shook the woman to her core. She froze, a gasp escaping her lips, as memories she had long tried to bury came rushing back. The courtrooms, the signed papers, the heart-wrenching day when her daughter had been taken from her. "Mommy?" she whispered, unable to believe the word. I don't know what to say." "Yes, you can say yes or no," Annie added gently, "but I think we were meant to find each other." Letitia watched from a few steps back, her heart swelling. Jonathan had arrived just then, catching sight of the scene. Annie sitting beside the woman, holding her hand, her small face filled with hope and love. Recognition hit him like a lightning bolt. The woman before them was Letitia, the very same he had seen years ago during the adoption proceedings. The sight was surreal, almost impossible, yet undeniable. Jonathan approached cautiously, his eyes locked on Letitia's. It's been a long time," he said softly. Letitia looked up, shock and disbelief flashing across her face as her eyes met Jonathan's. "Jonathan?" she murmured, voice trembling. Jonathan nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes. It's been 6 years, but I see now. You found her." His gaze shifted to Annie, who looked between them both, a bridge of innocence and love connecting the past with the present. Tears streamed down Letitia's cheeks as she pulled Annie into her lap, holding her close. I thought I'd never hear that word again," she whispered. Annie pressed her cheek against Letitia's chest. "I knew we'd find each other," she said softly. "I'm so glad you're my mommy now." Jonathan stepped back, allowing the moment to unfold, his own emotions threatening to overwhelm him. He realized that in this simple, profound act of connection, years of sorrow and longing had been transformed into hope and belonging. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the festival in golden hues, the three of them stood together on the edge of the parking lot, laughter and chatter surrounding them. Yet within their small circle, there was only joy, love, and the quiet acknowledgement that some moments in life could change everything. The park, once just a place of celebration, had become a sacred space of reunion. of healing, and of a family reunited against all odds. The evening shadows stretched across the park as Jonathan, Letitia, and Annie made their way toward the car. Annie, still clutching Letitia's hand, chattered excitedly about the day's adventures, the balloon dragon, the puppet show, the taste of the soft pretzel that had melted in her mouth like a small piece of heaven. Letitia smiled at her daughter's enthusiasm, yet beneath her joy was a quiet turmoil. 6 years of separation, loss, and grief had led to this singular moment, and it felt almost too miraculous to fully grasp. Jonathan, walking slightly behind them, kept his gaze on Letitia. Memories of the day he had signed the adoption papers flooded back. The courtroom, the sense of responsibility, the unshakable weight of making a life-altering decision. He remembered seeing Letitia's eyes filled with unspeakable pain as the papers were handed over, the fragile hope that someday she might find a way back to her child. Now, standing here in the waning light, he realized that hope had come to fruition in the most unexpected way. As they approached the car, Annie suddenly tugged Letitia toward a food stand by the park entrance. "Mommy, can we get ice cream? Please? It's my birthday treat." Her small face was radiant, eyes wide with anticipation. Letitia laughed softly, smoothing her daughter's hair. "Of course, sweetie. You've earned it after such a busy day." Jonathan smiled at the sight, his heart warming at the simple pleasures that now seemed monumental after the past weeks of upheaval. While Annie chose a scoop of chocolate with rainbow sprinkles, Letitia and Jonathan stood side by side, watching her with quiet gratitude. "I can't believe this," Letitia whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Jonathan nodded, his expression somber yet relieved. "She did, and she's exactly who she was always meant to be. You and she, you were always connected." Annie's giggle broke the momentary silence as she took her first bite of the ice cream. Chocolate smeared across her lips, sprinkles clinging to her small fingers. Letitia leaned down, brushing a stray dot of chocolate from her daughter's cheek. "You're messy," she said with mock sternness, but her eyes shone with love. "I like messy," Annie replied, wiggling free to take another enthusiastic bite. Jonathan cleared his throat, his voice soft. "I need to talk to you both about something important." Letitia's brow furrowed, sensing the gravity in his tone. Annie, unaware of the adult tension, continued licking her cone happily. Jonathan crouched slightly to be at eye level with Letitia. "That woman, the one we saw on the bench earlier, she's the same woman I saw years ago, right before signing the adoption papers." Letitia's eyes widened, recognition dawning. "I know. I remember. I thought I'd never see her again." Jonathan nodded, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "And now she's here. With Annie. And, well, you understand why this is so remarkable." Letitia's gaze shifted to her daughter, sitting innocently unaware of the complexity of her presence in this moment. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized the magnitude of what had just occurred. "I can't believe she's found me. She calls me Mommy." Jonathan exhaled slowly, relief and awe mingling in his chest. "It's incredible. And it's all because of her heart, her courage. Annie reached out when we couldn't, and in doing so, she bridged years of pain and separation. You're part of something extraordinary." Letitia took a deep breath, steadying herself. "It feels surreal, but it also feels right, as if this was meant to happen all along." Annie, having finished her ice cream, ran to Letitia, wrapping her small arms around her waist. "Mommy, did you like the ice cream? And the balloons? And the puppets?" Letitia laughed, hugging her daughter tightly. "I loved everything, sweetie. Especially this moment with you." Jonathan watched them, silently marveling at the perfect harmony between mother and daughter that had taken years to restore. As twilight descended, they walked together to the car, the park lights beginning to twinkle like distant stars. The festival music drifted faintly on the evening breeze, mingling with laughter and the sound of children playing. Letitia's hand held Annie's tightly, while Jonathan's presence anchored them both, a quiet but steadfast support. The future seemed uncertain, yet for the first time in years, it also seemed full of possibility. Once inside the car, Annie leaned her head against Letitia's shoulder, tired from the day's excitement. "Mommy, I'm so glad I found you today," she whispered, her voice sleepy but sincere. Letitia's heart ached with emotion. "I'm so glad too, sweet girl. You've brought me back to a place I thought I'd never reach." Jonathan started the engine, glancing in the rearview mirror to see the small family settled together, a tableau of hope and newfound connection. The drive home was quiet, the hum of the tires against the asphalt blending with the soft sounds of Annie's breathing. Letitia and Jonathan exchanged glances, a mutual understanding passing between them. The journey to this moment had been long, marked by separation and difficult choices, yet it had led them to a place where love and reconciliation could flourish. When they arrived at Jonathan's home, the house seemed to embrace them in the warm glow of the porch lights. Letitia lifted Annie out of the car and held her close. "Home," she whispered. Annie's eyes sparkled as she looked around at the familiar yet new surroundings. "Our home," she corrected, as if claiming her place in the world, her voice imbued with certainty. Letitia smiled, a sense of peace washing over her. Jonathan opened the door, allowing Letitia and Annie to step inside first. The house was quiet, yet it held the echoes of laughter and life, a place ready to receive them. Annie ran to her bedroom, exploring every corner with curiosity and delight, while Letitia followed more slowly, taking in the details and imagining the years of love and memories yet to come. Jonathan remained near the doorway, watching them. "It's the beginning of something new," he said softly. Letitia nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "Yes," she replied, "and it feels right, for all of us." The three of them, father, mother, and daughter, stood together in the living room, the day's events still vivid in their minds, yet the promise of tomorrow stretching ahead like an uncharted map, full of potential, healing, and love. Morning sunlight poured through the tall windows of Jonathan's home, casting warm golden streaks across the polished hardwood floors. Annie stirred in her bed, her small hands clutching the edge of her blanket as she blinked sleepily. "Mommy?" she whispered, her voice still soft with slumber. Letitia, already awake, leaned over the bed and brushed a lock of hair from Annie's forehead. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said gently. "Did you sleep well?" Annie yawned, her eyes wide and bright. "Yes, and I dreamed about the park, the balloons, the ice cream, the puppets, and you, Mommy." Letitia smiled, her heart swelling at the sound of those words. For 6 long years, she had imagined this moment in fragments, never fully believing it could come true. Now, here it was, her daughter calling her Mommy, a bridge rebuilt across years of separation. Downstairs, Jonathan was preparing breakfast in the kitchen, the scent of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee filling the air. The kitchen was spacious, with sunlight bouncing off white cabinets and a polished granite countertop. He glanced over his shoulder as Letitia entered, carrying Annie wrapped in a small towel after a quick morning wash. "Good morning," he said warmly. "Ready for pancakes?" Annie squealed with delight. "Yes, pancakes with syrup." She wriggled free from Letitia's arms and dashed to the kitchen, her little feet pattering across the floor. Letitia chuckled, following more slowly. "She's boundless," she said softly, pouring herself a cup of coffee. Jonathan's gaze lingered on her, seeing the mix of exhaustion and joy on her face. He knew she had endured years of heartbreak, yet here she was, finding happiness in a way he had once thought impossible. As they sat down at the breakfast table, Annie eagerly recounted every detail of her birthday festival. And then the dragon balloon flew over the stage, and everyone clapped, and I ate the chocolate ice cream, and it melted all over my hand, and Letitia reached over to hold her hand, smiling. "Slow down, Annie. Save some excitement for later," she teased. Jonathan laughed softly, shaking his head at the child's endless energy. "You're going to wear me out one day, kiddo," he said, ruffling her hair. Once breakfast was finished, Jonathan spoke, his tone more serious. "Letitia, there's something we need to plan today. It's about the past, and about how we move forward." Letitia's heart skipped a beat. She had felt the weight of that statement since the moment Annie had spoken the word "mommy" yesterday. I know, she said quietly. I think I understand what you mean. Jonathan nodded, taking a deep breath. The woman Annie found in the park, the one crying near the benches, that was the same woman I saw 6 years ago. Right before the adoption, she lost her parental rights, and I watched as Annie was placed with us. Letitia's hands tightened around her coffee cup, her knuckles turning white. Yes, I remember. I thought I'd never see her again. I never thought. Her voice faltered, tears threatening to spill. Annie, sensing the seriousness of the moment, climbed onto Letitia's lap. Mommy. She was so sad. I helped her feel better. Letitia hugged her tightly. You did, sweet girl. You did something incredible yesterday. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She's part of our story now. And we need to make sure we handle this with care. She needs kindness, and she needs the truth, but not too much, too soon. Jonathan's expression softened as he observed the bond between mother and daughter, and we'll give it to her. Together. This is our responsibility now. Annie may be small, but she has already done something remarkable. She has reunited 2 lives that were lost to each other. Letitia nodded, feeling a sense of purpose and resolve she hadn't felt in years. After breakfast, they prepared to head back to the park. Annie insisted on wearing her favorite blue dress, the one with little white daisies embroidered along the hem. Mommy, I want to see her again, the lady from yesterday. Jonathan handed Letitia the keys to the car, and together they stepped outside, the morning air crisp and filled with the scent of newly bloomed flowers. As they approached the park, the playground and festival decorations were already bustling with activity. Children ran past with balloons. Parents chatted under shaded tents, and the soft hum of carnival music drifted through the air. Annie gripped Letitia's hand tightly, her eyes scanning the crowd. There she is, she exclaimed, pointing to a woman sitting alone on a park bench. Her head bowed, hands clasped together. Letitia's heart clenched as she recognized the woman instantly. Her posture, her hands, the sorrow etched into her expression, all painfully familiar. Annie's small voice broke the momentary silence. Mommy, she has my color. Can I call her my mom? Letitia froze, struck by the innocence and courage of her daughter. The woman looked up, her eyes wide and brimming with shock. Did you just call me that? The woman asked, her voice trembling. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she stared at Annie. Yes, Annie said confidently, her tiny hand reaching out. I can call you Mommy because you're like me, and I think you could be my mom. The woman's breath caught in her throat, her mind flashing back to 6 years ago, the day her parental rights were taken, the long nights of grief, the endless longing for her child. Jonathan approached cautiously, seeing Letitia kneel beside Annie, the small child bridging the past and the present with a single, brave gesture. Annie, honey, wait a second, he said softly, though he allowed the moment to unfold naturally. He needed to witness the reunion firsthand. The woman's hands trembled as she reached out, gently touching Annie's face. Oh, my baby, she whispered. Letitia placed her hand on the woman's arm. She found you. She brought you back to each other, Letitia said softly, tears spilling down her own cheeks. The woman's knees buckled slightly as she enveloped Annie in an embrace, holding her as though she were afraid to let go of a lifetime lost. Annie, her small arms wrapping around the woman's neck, whispered, I knew you were my mom. I had to find you. The moment stretched, suspended in the warm morning light, as father, daughter, and mother, each having endured years of pain and longing, stood together at the intersection of past and present. Jonathan swallowed hard, realizing the gravity of what he was witnessing. The woman in front of him was the same he had seen before signing the adoption papers. A pivotal moment that had shaped all their lives. His breath caught, his mind racing with the realization that fate had orchestrated this encounter perfectly. Letitia rose to her feet, placing a steadying hand on Annie's shoulder. We need to make sure she knows she's safe, that she's loved, and that we'll help her through this, she said. The woman nodded, pulling Annie closer one last time. I can't believe it. I thought I'd lost her forever, she murmured. Annie hugged her tightly. I'm right here, Mommy. We're together now. Jonathan, standing a few steps away, finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. It's time we face this together. Letitia, Annie, and you. This moment, it's bigger than any of us alone. It's about family, about love, and about reclaiming what was once lost. The woman looked up at him, eyes wide with recognition. You were there. All those years ago, you made the decision. Jonathan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Yes. And now I see the outcome in front of me, in the most remarkable way. You and Annie, you were meant to find each other again. The woman's hands shook, her voice breaking. I never stopped thinking about her. I never stopped hoping. 2:18. Annie tugged gently at the woman's hand. I found you, she said simply, as though the magnitude of years didn't exist, as though love alone could erase every sorrow. And in that instant, the past 6 years of grief, separation, and longing dissolved into the bright clarity of a new beginning. The three of them, mother, daughter, and the man who had held their lives together, stood together on the edge of the park, the festival noises swirling around them. Yet the world had narrowed down to this one perfect moment. A new chapter had begun, stitched together by courage, compassion, and the unyielding bonds of love that refused to be broken. The day had turned warm and bright, the park bustling with families enjoying the crisp spring air. Jonathan stood slightly apart, observing Letitia and Annie as they guided the woman who introduced herself hesitantly as Marlene toward a shaded area under the blossoming dogwood trees. Annie skipped ahead, chattering excitedly, pointing out the carousel and the cotton candy stand. Mommy, can we go see the magician first? Annie asked, tugging at Marlene's hand. Marlene hesitated, glancing at Letitia, whose gentle nod encouraged her. Of course, sweetheart, she said softly, a tremor of awe in her voice as she followed the little girl. Jonathan watched as the trio disappeared into the crowd, the scene feeling surreal. He had witnessed countless reunions over the years in his work, but none had struck him with this intensity. Here was a mother and child, reunited by a twist of fate, yet surrounded by a world that seemed unaware of the significance of the moment. Annie's voice rang out from a nearby path. Look, Mommy, there's a balloon artist. Can we get one? Marlene bent down, smiling. Sure, sweetie. Let's see what we can do. Jonathan noticed the way Marlene's eyes softened whenever she looked at Annie, a mixture of wonder and apprehension. After 6 years apart, the bond was fragile yet undeniable. Letitia approached Jonathan, speaking quietly so as not to interrupt the small family. We should let them have some time together. Annie has already bonded so quickly with her, and Marlene, she's cautious. But the moment Annie said, Mommy, everything changed. Jonathan nodded, his hands tightening slightly around his coffee cup. Yes, it's a delicate balance. We need to ensure Marlene feels safe, but also that Annie feels secure. They need to rebuild trust naturally. 7D2. Across the park, Annie had tugged Marlene toward a small bench near a cluster of daffodils. Sit here, Mommy, she commanded, with the conviction only a child could possess. I want to tell you about the fairies I saw by the fountain and the popcorn I ate with Daddy. Marlene sat carefully, trying not to overwhelm her daughter with her own emotions. Tell me everything, Annie, she whispered, her voice thick with tears. Annie's excitement bubbled over as she recounted each detail, punctuating her sentences with laughter and hand gestures. Marlene listened intently, absorbing every word, every nuance of her daughter's personality. It was as though the years of separation melted away, leaving only the pure, unfiltered connection between them. Jonathan and Letitia lingered nearby, pretending to examine a nearby flower bed while keeping a careful eye on the reunion. It's incredible, Letitia said softly. She's so intuitive, so full of empathy. Annie knew exactly how to reach her. Jonathan nodded. Children often sense what adults overlook. Annie acted as the bridge, but we have to guide them carefully now. One wrong step and Marlene might retreat. Suddenly, Annie's gaze shifted, spotting the ice cream cart near the carousel. Mommy, can we get a cone? Please, she squealed. Marlene laughed, her first genuine sound of ease since the reunion began. Of course, sweetie, we'll get the chocolate and vanilla swirls. Jonathan watched as Marlene handed money to the vendor, her hands steady despite the lingering anxiety in her eyes. As they settled on a nearby bench with their ice cream cones, Jonathan approached, clearing his throat gently. Marlene, he began, his tone measured. I need to say something. 6 years ago, I signed the papers transferring Annie to an adoptive family. I thought it was in her best interest, and at the time, it was. But seeing you here today, seeing Annie call you Mommy, his voice faltered slightly. It's overwhelming. Marlene's eyes met his, wide and searching. You were there, she whispered. You knew everything. Jonathan nodded slowly. I did. And I want you to understand, I didn't make that decision lightly. I never stopped thinking about you, about Annie, about the life that might have been. And now, here we are, given a second chance. Marlene's hands trembled as she reached for Annie, who nestled closer, offering a small hand to Jonathan. It's too much to process, she said, tears glistening. Annie tugged at Marlene's sleeve. Mommy, you can hold my hand too. Daddy says we stick together. Jonathan's eyes softened as he realized the depth of what the child had accomplished. Annie had not only found her mother but had also created a space for all of them to heal together. They spent the rest of the morning exploring the park, playing simple games and watching the festival performances. Jonathan observed from a distance, noting the subtle cues of connection, the way Marlene instinctively held Annie's hand when crossing paths with strangers. The way Annie leaned into her, laughing freely without hesitation, and the quiet support Letitia offered from the sidelines. By midday, Marlene and Jonathan sat on a bench under a large oak tree, watching Annie chase a butterfly. She's remarkable, Jonathan said quietly. She brought you back to your life without fear, without hesitation. That takes courage. Marlene nodded, her lips pressed together to hold back tears. I never knew how much I missed her until I saw her yesterday. And now I have to learn how to be the mother I wasn't allowed to be. Jonathan reached out, resting a reassuring hand on hers. You will. And we'll help. Letitia and I, we want you in her life. Not just today, not just here. She deserves that stability, and you deserve the chance to be the mother you were always meant to be. Marlene exhaled slowly, a weight lifting from her chest. Thank you. Both of you. I can't believe this is real. Annie ran back toward them, a small cluster of balloons in one hand and a beaming smile on her face. Mommy, look, we got them. And I told the magician to make you a crown too. Marlene laughed, her eyes shining with unrestrained joy. A crown? For me? Annie nodded vigorously. Yes, because you're my mommy, and you're the best one ever. Jonathan smiled quietly, observing the scene. The years of bureaucracy, the cold legalities of adoption, the separation, they all seemed insignificant now in the face of this pure, undeniable bond. Here was a family, fragile but whole, stitched together by fate, courage, and the unwavering spirit of a 6-year-old child. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the park, Marlene held Annie close, feeling the warmth and life she had missed for so long. Jonathan and Letitia exchanged a glance, silently acknowledging the miracle of the moment. This day would mark a turning point, a day when lost time was reclaimed, hearts were healed, and the possibility of family, love, and redemption was renewed in ways none of them could have predicted. The soft breeze of late afternoon carried the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming magnolias across the park. Annie skipped ahead of Marlene, clutching the crown from the magician, her laughter ringing like wind chimes. Marlene followed slowly, still processing the whirlwind of emotions from the morning. Jonathan walked beside them, a steady presence, his eyes scanning the surroundings as if making sure no one disrupted this fragile harmony. Mommy, look at this, Annie exclaimed, pointing toward the carousel. Do you want to ride with me? Marlene smiled, a mixture of delight and nervous anticipation. I would love to, sweetie." They climbed onto the carousel, Jonathan helping them settle into the intricately painted horse seats. The music played, bright and cheerful, as the carousel began to turn. Marlene held Annie's hand tightly, feeling her tiny fingers wrap around hers with complete trust. After several rounds, the carousel slowed, and they dismounted. Marlene crouched down to Annie's height. "Are you having fun, Annie?" she asked softly. Annie nodded vigorously. "Yes, I love today." "I love you, Mommy." Marlene's throat tightened. She bent down and kissed Annie's forehead. "I love you too, more than you can imagine." Jonathan cleared his throat gently. "Marlene, can we step aside for a moment? I need to speak with you." Marlene glanced at him, concern flickering in her eyes. "Of course," she replied, taking a deep breath. Jonathan led her toward a shaded walkway, leaving Annie with a small ice cream cone in hand. "You need to understand something," Jonathan began carefully. "6 years ago, I signed the paperwork transferring Annie to the adoptive family. At the time, it seemed like the right decision. But today, seeing you here, seeing the way Annie looks at you, calling you Mommy," his voice faltered, "it's something I didn't anticipate. I want you to have a chance to be in her life fully, if that's what you want." Marlene's hands trembled. "Jonathan, I never stopped thinking about her, about being her mother. I just didn't know if I could have her back. Today, it feels like a miracle." She exhaled, closing her eyes briefly. "I don't want to scare her. I don't want to ruin what she has. She's so happy." "Well," Jonathan nodded, "I understand. That's why we need to move slowly. She's strong, intuitive, and she knows how to bridge gaps adults struggle with. But you're just as important in guiding this reconnection. We'll support you every step of the way." Meanwhile, Annie bounded back, holding out her ice cream cone. "Mommy, try some. It's chocolate with sprinkles." Marlene laughed and took a careful lick, the sweetness of the ice cream mingling with the warmth of the day. "It's perfect," she said. Annie clapped her hands, delighted by her mother's approval. They spent the next hour exploring the park, taking in the small festival booths, playing ring toss, and watching a juggler perform tricks that drew delighted gasps from children. Marlene began to relax, laughing freely with Annie, the weight of 6 years apart slowly lifting. She noticed how easily the little girl navigated the world, confident and bold, yet sensitive and empathetic, a reflection of the mother she had longed to be. Jonathan observed silently from a distance, feeling a sense of relief. The delicate balance he had feared, the fear of rejection, the fear of overwhelming emotions was stabilizing. He knew there would be challenges ahead, legal matters, emotional adjustments, and moments of doubt. But for now, the connection forming before his eyes was genuine, resilient, and full of potential. As the sun began its descent, casting golden hues across the park, Marlene knelt to adjust Annie's crown. "You look beautiful, my little princess," she said. Annie beamed. "Do you think Daddy would like it too?" Marlene laughed softly. "I'm sure he will. But we have to keep it our secret until he sees it." Annie giggled conspiratorially, clinging to her mother's side. Jonathan approached, his hands folded calmly. "Marlene, I think it's time we consider the next step, reintroducing Annie into a structured home environment where both of you can thrive. The park is wonderful, but she needs consistency and stability, and so do you." Marlene nodded slowly, her mind whirling. "I know. I'm scared. I don't want to fail her again." "You won't," Jonathan assured her. "We'll work together. Think of me as a partner in this. Your partnership with Annie isn't just emotional, it's practical. She's learning, observing, growing. You'll be there guiding her, shaping a new chapter for both of you. And when challenges arise, we handle them together." Back nodding, Annie tugged at Marlene's hand again. "Mommy, can we see the parade float now? Please." Marlene laughed, lifting her daughter onto her shoulders. All right. Let's go see the parade." Jonathan watched them move toward the large, colorful floats, filled with musicians, dancers, and performers in vibrant costumes. The joy radiating from Marlene and Annie was tangible, drawing smiles from nearby families. Marlene adjusted the scarf around her neck and whispered to Jonathan, "I can't believe this. After all these years, I feel like I'm finally where I belong." Jonathan's expression softened. "You are, and you're about to build a future that neither of you will take for granted." As the parade began, Annie pointed out each float with wide-eyed wonder. "Look, Mommy, that one's a dragon, and that one's a pirate ship." Marlene laughed and clapped along, feeling a lightness she hadn't known since Annie had been taken away. She bent down, hugging her daughter tightly. "I've missed you so much," she murmured, her voice breaking. "I've missed you too, Mommy," Annie said simply, her voice full of conviction. "But we found each other now, forever." Marlene's eyes glistened as she nodded, tears streaming freely, and she hugged her daughter again. Jonathan observed, a subtle sense of closure settling within him. The years of separation, the complicated legalities, the heartache, they all led to this. A mother and daughter reunited. The bridge of understanding built by the courage of a 6-year-old girl. This day was more than a reunion. It was the first page of a story rewritten, filled with hope, love, and the quiet assurance that sometimes second chances were real and profoundly beautiful. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the park, Marlene and Annie walked hand in hand, laughing and chatting. Jonathan and Letitia followed, giving them space while remaining close. The world around them continued in its usual bustle, unaware of the transformative day unfolding quietly within its midst. And in that moment, amid the laughter, the bright colors, and the warm spring air, the family that fate had gently orchestrated began to take shape, stronger, wiser, and united in ways they had never imagined possible. The next morning, sunlight filtered gently through the tall oaks surrounding the park, casting long shadows that danced on the dew-speckled grass. Annie woke early, tugging at Marlene's sleeve with an urgent whisper. "Mommy, the parade is starting. Can we go?" Marlene laughed softly, ruffling her daughter's hair. "All right, sweetheart, let's get ready." She pulled on a light jacket over her blouse and jeans, checking that Annie's small backpack was secure. Jonathan followed, carrying a thermos of hot chocolate and a few breakfast muffins they had picked up on the way. The park was alive with activity. Families strolled along pathways lined with colorful banners. Vendors called out cheerfully from stalls selling balloons, toys, and handmade crafts, and the scent of freshly popped popcorn and caramel apples filled the air. Marlene held Annie's hand tightly, feeling both the joy and the weight of responsibility settle over her. Today, she would fully step into the role she had dreamed about for 6 long years. As they approached the main parade route, Annie spotted the floats and began bouncing excitedly. "Mommy, look, there's the dragon float. And the princesses. Can we wave?" Marlene lifted Annie onto her shoulders, and together they waved at the performers, who responded with broad smiles and dramatic bows. The little girl's laughter echoed, pure and unrestrained, carrying a promise of the bond they had begun to forge yesterday. Jonathan stayed a few paces behind, allowing mother and daughter to share these first moments alone. He observed the interaction, noting Marlene's ease with Annie's energy, the warmth in her touch, the patient attentiveness in her responses. This wasn't just a casual day in the park. It was a rehearsal for the life they were about to build together. After several minutes of watching the parade, Annie tugged at Marlene's hand again. "Mommy, I'm hungry. Can we get some food?" Marlene smiled, nodding. "Of course. Let's find a stand with something tasty." They navigated through the crowds, finally stopping at a small booth selling fresh pretzels, hot dogs, and fruit cups. Annie chose a chocolate-dipped pretzel, her eyes lighting up as Marlene handed her a napkin. While Annie busily munched on her treat, Marlene scanned the park, noticing a quiet corner near the edge of the parking area. A woman sat there on a bench, shoulders slumped, hands covering her face. Marlene felt a sudden, inexplicable pull toward her. Something about the woman's posture, her visible distress, resonated deep within Marlene. "Annie, noticing the woman as well, dropped her pretzel and said softly, "Mommy, that lady, she looks sad." There's now the work. Before Marlene could respond, Annie bounded toward the bench. "Are you crying? Did someone hurt your heart?" she called out, her small voice both tender and insistent. The woman froze, slowly lifting her tear-streaked face to look at the child. Marlene quickened her pace, heart pounding. But Annie had already reached the woman, gently touching her arm. I, the woman stammered, eyes wide with disbelief. Who are you?" Annie smiled, the innocence and bravery of a 6-year-old shining through. "I'm Annie. I have the same color skin as you. Can I call you Mommy?" The words hung in the air, fragile yet electrifying. A lifeline tossed across years of separation and longing. The woman's breath caught. Her lips trembled. "Mommy?" she whispered, disbelief and shock flooding her features. Memories came rushing back 6 years ago. The sound of her daughter's cries as she had been taken from her, the courtroom, the papers, the crushing weight of the adoption she had signed off on under duress. "No, it can't. It's impossible," she murmured, hands trembling as she reached out to touch Annie's cheek. "Yes," Annie said firmly, gripping the woman's hands. "It's me. I found you. I've been waiting. I've been waiting for you to be my mommy." Marlene arrived then, standing just behind Annie, heart aching as she watched the reunion unfold. The woman's eyes filled with tears, her body shaking as she pulled Annie close, holding her like she might never let go. "Oh, Annie, my baby, my sweet girl," the woman choked, pressing her forehead against Annie's. "All these years, I thought I'd never see you again. I thought I had lost you forever." Annie hugged her tightly, whispering, "I'm here now, Mommy. I'm here, and I won't ever leave." Marlene, watching the raw emotion, felt tears slide down her own cheeks. Jonathan approached cautiously, his steps measured, taking in the scene before him. He had known this woman from the paperwork, from the time he had signed the adoption agreement. She was the birth mother, the very person who had entrusted Annie into his care. And now, witnessing this moment, he felt a profound mix of awe and unease. He understood the magnitude of what had just occurred, how delicate the bonds of family could be, and how courage and love had intersected in the most unexpected way. "Jonathan, is this?" the woman stammered, finally noticing him standing nearby. Jonathan nodded slowly, maintaining a respectful distance. "Yes, it's her, Annie." The woman turned back to Annie, eyes wide and unblinking, marveling at the living proof of her daughter's survival and spirit. Marlene stepped forward gently. "You don't have to explain everything right now. Just let this be the beginning. There's time to talk, to heal, to understand." The woman nodded, tears continuing to flow, her hands never leaving Annie's. I don't know what to say. I've dreamed of this every day, but I never thought." She trailed off, overcome by emotion, rocking Annie slightly in her arms. Annie looked up at Marlene, her small face filled with wonder. "Mommy, you're real. You're really my mommy." Marlene smiled softly, tears glistening in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. She's real, and she's here." The woman's sobs mingled with Annie's laughter, a symphony of reunion and renewed hope. Jonathan cleared his throat lightly. "I think we should sit somewhere for a moment," he said, motioning toward a shaded area nearby. "This is a lot for everyone. It's important we take it slowly." The woman nodded, finally lowering Annie onto her lap as they moved toward the bench. Marlene followed, sitting down beside them. Jonathan remained standing, hands clasped, observing the first careful steps of a family reconnecting after years apart. Annie rested her head against her mother's chest, the warmth and comfort enveloping her in a cocoon of security she had never fully known. The woman stroked Annie's hair gently, marveling at the little hands that had reached for her today, the voice that had called her Mommy, the courage that had brought them together. "Annie," the woman whispered, "I promise, I'll never leave you again." Annie lifted her face, eyes shining. "I know, Mommy, and I'll help you too. We'll be a team." Marlene, sitting quietly beside them, smiled through her own tears, witnessing a miracle unfold in the heart of the park. For the first time in years, broken pieces of the past began to knit together. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, illuminating a mother and daughter reunited, a bond forged anew, and the quiet promise of a future filled with love, courage, and hope. The park had grown quieter as the afternoon stretched on. The festival continued in the distance, but in their little corner by the parking lot, time seemed to slow. Annie still clung to her mother's side, her small fingers tangled in the folds of the woman's blouse. Marlene and Jonathan stood nearby, giving the newly reunited pair space, though their eyes never left the scene. Marlene broke the silence first, her voice gentle. "Annie, honey, maybe you can tell Mommy here what made you come to her today." Annie's eyes sparkled as she looked up at the woman, her tiny mouth forming a determined smile. I wanted to find you. I always wanted my mommy. I knew you were out there. I just didn't know where, but I had to look." The words were simple, yet carried a weight that seemed to make the woman catch her breath. The woman, whose name was now Mariah, nodded slowly, tears streaking her face. "All these years, I thought I had failed you. I thought you would forget me." Her voice shook, and she pulled Annie closer, holding her as though she might dissolve if she let go. You found me. You really found me." "Yes," Annie whispered. "I saw you crying, and I thought, maybe you needed me. I wanted to be your little girl again." Mariah's hands trembled over Annie's back, tracing circles as if memorizing every contour, every small curve of her daughter's frame. "Oh, my baby. My Annie," she said, barely able to get the words out. Her mind raced back 6 years, remembering the day she had signed the papers that gave Annie to Jonathan. She remembered the courtroom, the social workers, the helplessness, but none of it had prepared her for this moment of raw, living connection. Jonathan approached slowly, clearing his throat softly to announce his presence without startling them. "I think it's safe to say this is a very special moment," he said, his voice low but steady. Mariah looked up at him, her expression one of startled recognition. The corners of her eyes widened. You're the man from the adoption papers?" Jonathan nodded. "Yes. Annie has been safe and loved. And today, you found her." He kept his tone calm, measured, letting her take in the reality of the situation. Annie looked from her mother to Jonathan, then back to Mariah. "Daddy says you're my real mommy," she said softly, her childlike logic cutting through years of pain and uncertainty. Mariah laughed through tears, the sound raw and trembling. "Yes, I am. And you are my miracle." She hugged Annie tighter, inhaling her scent, imprinting the moment in her memory. Marlene stepped closer, offering support. "Mariah, I know this must feel overwhelming, but maybe you can take a few deep breaths. You're not alone. We're here to help you navigate this, one step at a time." Mariah nodded slowly, letting go just enough to look at the woman. "Thank you. I don't even know where to start. I never expected. I thought I had lost her forever." Annie, sensing her mother's anxiety, tugged at Mariah's hand. "Mommy, can we go see the festival now? You can eat and play with me?" Mariah's lips curved into a faint smile, and she nodded. "Yes, sweetheart. Let's go enjoy it together. I want to be here for you, for all the things we missed." Jonathan handed Marlene the thermos of hot chocolate, and she poured a small cup for Mariah. "Here," she said gently, "just take a moment, sip slowly." Mariah took the cup, her hands still shaking, and took a tentative sip. The warmth spread through her, grounding her just enough to begin processing the whirlwind of emotion surrounding her. The four of them, Annie, Mariah, Jonathan, and Marlene, began walking toward the festival, Annie skipping ahead, occasionally glancing back to make sure her mother was keeping up. Every laugh, every squeal of delight from Annie, as she pointed out balloons, clowns, and floats, stitched another layer of connection between Mariah and her daughter. Mariah felt something inside her shift, the tight knot of guilt and fear loosening slightly with each passing second. They paused at a stand selling cotton candy. Annie's eyes widened. "Pink and blue," she squealed. Mariah chuckled, buying a small portion of pink cotton candy. "For you," she said, holding it out. Annie took a fluffy bite and turned to her mother. "Mommy, it's perfect. Just like you." Mariah laughed, tears falling onto her hands. "I'll take that as a compliment, my little one." Jonathan and Marlene followed at a careful distance, letting the mother-daughter pair build their own rhythm. Jonathan spoke quietly to Marlene. "I never imagined today would unfold like this. She's exactly what Annie needed." Marlene nodded. "Yes, and Mariah, she's finally going to have the chance she's deserved all along." It's almost cinematic, the way it's playing out. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden glow across the park, Mariah and Annie found themselves seated on a bench near a carousel. Annie's small hand rested in her mother's, and they watched as children rode the horses, laughing and waving. "Mommy," Annie whispered, "I'm so happy I found you." Mariah pressed her cheek to Annie's and whispered back, "And I'm so happy I finally have you back. We have all the time in the world now." The carousel lights flickered on, casting a warm glow over the mother and daughter. Mariah watched Annie spin in delight, feeling the years of longing and loss dissolve, replaced by hope and the promise of a shared future. She knew the journey ahead would not be easy. There would be paperwork, adjustments, and the careful navigation of the blended family. But for the first time, she felt capable, whole, and ready to embrace it all. Jonathan joined them quietly, placing a reassuring hand on Mariah's shoulder. "You're not alone in this," he said gently. Mariah nodded, inhaling the evening air, the scent of popcorn and grass mingling with the warmth of Annie's small hand. "I know," she whispered. "We'll figure it out. Together." Annie, still twirling from the carousel's slow spin, called out happily, "Mommy, look at me." Mariah laughed, clapping her hands. "I see you, my little star." Her eyes softened, her heart full. In that golden light, with her daughter's laughter ringing through the park, she realized that this day marked not just a reunion, but the beginning of the life she had always dreamed of, the life they all deserved. The evening air in the park was cooler now, carrying the faint scent of caramel apples and the laughter of children still lingering from the festival. Annie, exhausted from the day's excitement, nestled close to Mariah on the bench, cotton candy partially eaten and clutched in her small hand. Mariah watched her daughter, her heart swelling with both awe and guilt, thinking about the 6 long years they had been apart. She had imagined this moment countless times, but reality far exceeded her dreams. Jonathan and Marlene lingered a few steps behind, giving the mother-daughter pair a private space while remaining close enough to intervene if needed. Jonathan's expression was thoughtful, almost tense, as he observed Mariah's interaction with Annie. "It's incredible," he murmured to Marlene. "She's naturally taking to her. The connection, it's instantaneous, too." Marlene nodded, sipping her coffee from the thermos Jonathan had brought. "It's rare," she said softly. "You can see it in the way Mariah responds. Every little gesture Annie makes resonates with her. That's what makes this moment so powerful. This isn't just a reunion. It's a bond being reforged from the fragments of the past." Meanwhile, Mariah gently stroked Annie's hair, her touch tentative at first, then growing more confident as the child relaxed against her. "You're so brave, Annie," Mariah whispered, voice cracking with emotion. "I can't believe you found me." Annie looked up at her mother with wide, earnest eyes. "I knew you were out here somewhere," she said. I had to find you. I wanted you to be my mommy, really." Tears pricked Mariah's eyes. "And I always wanted to be your mommy," she admitted. "Every day, I thought about you. I dreamed about you. And now you're here. I can finally hold you and not let go." Her voice trembled as she embraced Annie fully, rocking her gently. Annie pressed her cheek against her mother's, whispering, "I'm never letting go either." Jonathan cleared his throat lightly, and Mariah looked up to see him approaching with a small smile. I think you two deserve a moment to yourselves, he said, careful to keep his tone supportive but unobtrusive. But when you're ready, there's a path through the festival grounds you might enjoy. Some rides and games are still open. I willed. Marlene joined him, placing a reassuring hand on Jonathan's shoulder. They need this, she said. All the planning, all the logistics, they'll get to that later. Right now, it's about letting them just be mother and daughter. Jonathan nodded, taking a slow breath. Yes, you're right. I almost forget sometimes, with all the legalities and paperwork. But moments like this is why it all matters. Mariah smiled faintly at the two adults, then turned her attention back to Annie. Do you want to see the lights on the carousel one more time? She asked gently. Annie's face lit up. Yes. Can we go? Please? Mariah chuckled, standing and holding out her hand. Of course, my brave little girl. As they approached the carousel, Annie's excitement grew, and she skipped a few steps ahead, looking back to ensure her mother was following. Mariah followed at a steady pace, careful not to rush, letting Annie take the lead. She noticed the way other parents watched, some smiling at the sight of the pair, recognizing the warmth and tenderness radiating between mother and child. Mommy? Annie asked suddenly, tugging at Mariah's hand. Will we get to stay together forever? Mariah stopped, kneeling down so she was eye level with her daughter. Yes, Annie, she said firmly, letting her hands rest gently on Annie's shoulders. I will never let anything separate us again. You're my daughter, and I am your mommy. Always. Annie's small hands flew up to hug Mariah's neck. I love you, Mommy, she whispered. I love you too, my angel, Mariah replied, her voice choked with tears. She felt the weight of all those years lift slightly, replaced by a sense of purpose and belonging she had never truly known. Each embrace, each soft word, reinforced the promise they were making to each other in that moment. To heal together, to nurture, to grow. Jonathan watched silently, a lump in his throat. The years of responsibility, of legal obligations and careful decisions, culminated in this singular moment of emotional clarity. He had ensured Annie's safety, her comfort, and her happiness, but he hadn't expected the reunion to be so profoundly moving, so transformative. He felt a surge of gratitude for both Annie's courage and Mariah's resilience. Mommy, look! Annie exclaimed, pointing to a row of colorful balloons floating nearby. Can we get one? Mariah smiled and nodded. Of course, my love. Let's pick a color together. Annie's tiny hand gripped Mariah's as they approached the balloon stand, choosing a bright yellow one that reflected her sunny, hopeful spirit. Mariah adjusted the string carefully, making sure it wouldn't slip from Annie's grasp. The two walked slowly back toward the festival area, their steps synchronized, their laughter mingling naturally. Mariah allowed herself a small smile as she noticed the subtle changes in Annie, the confident way she held her balloon, the sparkle in her eyes, the ease with which she engaged the world. This was a child reclaiming her joy, and Mariah knew she had an essential role in shaping it. As the sky darkened and strings of fairy lights illuminated the park, Annie tugged at Mariah's hand again. Can we go on the little train? She asked, eyes wide with anticipation. Mariah nodded. Yes, let's go, but you have to hold my hand tight, okay? Annie grinned and nodded enthusiastically, looping her small fingers around her mother's. They boarded the train together, the vehicle moving slowly along the track as Annie squealed with delight, pointing out various festival attractions, waving at children she recognized from the day. Mariah laughed softly, allowing herself to be carried along by Annie's infectious energy. For the first time in years, she felt completely present, fully alive in a moment untainted by regret or fear. After the ride ended, they found a quiet spot near the park benches, settling down to enjoy the gentle hum of the festival as it wound down. Mariah pulled Annie close, resting her head against her daughter's, and whispered softly, "Thank you for finding me, Annie. You've given me the most precious gift today." Annie snuggled closer. "No, Mommy, you gave me the gift too. You're my mommy, and I've waited so long." Mariah pressed a gentle kiss to the top of Annie's head, feeling an overwhelming mix of relief, joy, and hope. the park lights reflected in their eyes, creating a halo of warmth around them. Jonathan and Marlene lingered nearby, watching the scene unfold. Jonathan finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "It's a new beginning," he said. "For all of you." Marlene nodded, smiling softly. "Yes, and it's exactly what they've needed. Now comes the hard work of building a life together, but it will be worth every step." As night fell fully over the park, Mariah held Annie's hand tightly, watching the lights flicker and the few remaining festival goers wander past. She knew that life would not always be easy, that challenges and bureaucracy awaited, but she also knew this: they had each other now, and that was more than enough to begin again. The morning sunlight spilled gently through the park's tall oaks, casting dappled shadows across the paved paths. Annie bounced lightly on the balls of her feet, holding her bright yellow balloon tightly in one hand and Mariah's hand in the other. Today was special not just because it was the culmination of a festival-filled day, but because it marked a new chapter in their lives together. Jonathan and Marlene stood a short distance away, watching the mother-daughter pair. Jonathan's sharp blue eyes followed every motion, noting the ease and comfort between them. "It's remarkable," he murmured, almost to himself. 6 years apart, and yet the bond is instantaneous. Marlene smiled, sipping her coffee. "It's as if they've been waiting for this moment all their lives." Sometimes, love doesn't follow logic, it just finds a way. Annie tugged on Mariah's hand, pointing toward the carousel that had closed hours ago. "Mommy, can we go see the fountain again? The one with the lights?" Mariah chuckled softly. "Of course, sweetie. Let's go together." She followed Annie along the winding paths, allowing the child to lead. The fountain, now illuminated with soft, shimmering lights, reflected on the surrounding water and created a serene, almost magical ambiance. Annie's eyes sparkled. "Mommy, it's so beautiful, just like I imagined." Mariah knelt down to Annie's level, brushing a stray curl from her daughter's forehead. "It's beautiful because we're here together," she said, voice thick with emotion. "Nothing else matters as long as we have each other." As they approached the fountain, Annie spotted something that made her heart leap. A group of children were laughing and tossing coins into the water, making wishes. She ran forward excitedly, urging her mother to follow. Mariah smiled, letting Annie's energy guide them. She noticed how the other parents and park-goers paused, enchanted by the sight of the two. The ease of their connection, the natural warmth radiating from Mariah's protective and tender posture. Annie's small hand tightened around Mariah's. "Mommy, will we always be together? No one can ever take us apart, right?" Mariah crouched down, holding Annie's face gently in her hands. "Never, my love," she whispered. "You are my daughter. I am your mother. Always." Tears gathered in her eyes, reflecting both years of lost time and the promise of a shared future. Jonathan walked over quietly, standing just behind them. He kept his voice low, careful not to intrude. "This is exactly what we hoped for," he said, almost reverently. "The moment you see them together, you realize all the paperwork, all the legalities. It's worth it for this. This is the real victory." Marlene joined him, nodding. They're rewriting history with their bond, and it's not just emotional, it's transformative. For both of them, every step from now on will be built on this foundation of trust, hope, and love. Annie leaned forward to drop a coin into the fountain, whispering a wish. "I wish Mommy and I can stay together forever, and we'll be happy always." Mariah hugged her tightly, letting a soft laugh escape despite her tears. "I wish the same, Annie. I wish the same." She watched the ripples expand across the water, a perfect symbol of the waves of change and healing in their lives. The family's attention was drawn to the distant strains of music and laughter from the last remnants of the festival. Jonathan suggested, "There's still a little activity left, maybe a walk through the festival grounds before they close. Let them have one last taste of the fun day." Marlene nodded, agreeing. "Yes, allow the day to end with joy and memories that bind them even more tightly." Mariah took Annie's hand once more. "Shall we?" she asked, and Annie squealed in delight. They wandered through the festival path, taking in the sights one last time. Cotton candy vendors offered small treats. The scent of roasted nuts mingled with the crisp winter air, and street performers bowed to applause. Annie's laughter was a melody that seemed to make everything lighter, more joyful. After a few minutes, they paused near a park bench. Mariah knelt beside Annie, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Do you remember the first time we met here, Annie?" she asked softly. Annie nodded vigorously. "Yes. I found you, Mommy. I knew you were out here somewhere, and I came to find you. And then, everything changed." Mariah held her tightly. "It did. Everything changed because we found each other. And now, we have a choice to make every day better than the last." As the sun dipped lower, casting long golden beams over the park, Jonathan approached once more, smiling. "This reunion, it's the start of something extraordinary. And now, you have the power to shape their days, their growth, and their happiness. That's why this moment matters." Marlene added, "Remember, the world outside might still be challenging, but what you've built here, a family, a bond, a shared hope, is unshakable. Teach them the values of kindness, resilience, and courage. That will carry them farther than anything else." Mariah looked down at Annie, whose tiny fingers clutched the hem of her coat. "I promise, Annie, that we'll face everything together. We'll laugh, cry, learn, and grow. And I'll be your mother every step of the way." Annie looked up, eyes shining. "And I'll be your daughter, Mommy. Always." Jonathan gave a small nod, satisfied that the emotional arc had reached a natural resolution. He knew that their future held challenges, adjustments, and the daily responsibilities of parenting. But he also knew this: they had each other, and that was the truest form of security. As twilight settled over the park, Mariah held Annie's hand tightly, the balloon bobbing gently above them. For the first time in years, she felt complete. No regrets, no fear, just the quiet, steadfast joy of a life reclaimed. The festival lights twinkled in the background, reflecting in their eyes like tiny stars. And in that serene moment, mother and daughter, along with their quiet guardianship by Jonathan and Marlene, embraced the promise of tomorrow. Walking back toward the car, Annie looked up at Mariah. "Mommy, can we come back here next year for my birthday too?" Mariah smiled warmly, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Of course, Annie. Every year, if you want. This will be our special place, a place of beginnings." Annie's grin widened. "Yes, our place forever." Jonathan and Marlene followed behind, feeling the weight of relief, joy, and hope settle in their chests. It had been a long journey, years of separation, legalities, and emotional strain. But in this quiet park under fading festival lights, a family had truly begun again. And that beginning would ripple outward, touching every day they shared, teaching lessons of resilience, courage, and unconditional love. The story conveys a powerful lesson about the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of kindness. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope and compassion can create unexpected opportunities and restore lives. True family is not only about blood, but also about connection, trust, and love, showing that small acts of courage and empathy can heal deep wounds and build lasting bonds. This story encourages the audience to embrace generosity, recognize the value of relationships, and believe in second chances. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.